Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Afghanistan's Taliban, if bad things happen, we'll go back, after the U.S. signed with them the historic accord that Washington hopes will mark the beginning of the end of its longest war.
If bad things happen, we'll go back. I let the people know we'll go back, and we'll go back so fast, and we'll go back with a force like nobody's ever seen. And I don't think that will be necessary. I hope it's not necessary.
After nearly 2 decades of conflict that has ravaged Afghanistan's impoverished population, the U.S. and the Taliban signed a historic accord on Saturday that Washington hopes will mark the beginning of the end of its longest war. The pact signed in Doha would see the Pentagon and foreign partner forces pull all their troops from Afghanistan within 14 months, provided the Taliban stick to pledges to open a dialogue with the Western-backed Kabul government and push back against jihadist groups, including Al-Qaeda. Supporters of the deal, which was signed in Doha after more than a year of fractious talks, say it marks a critical first step towards peace, though many Afghans fear it amounts to little more than a dressed-up surrender that will ultimately see the Taliban return to power.
The most important aspect of this agreement is that it's the first concrete milestone in an Afghan peace process. There have been efforts over a decade now to try to get a peace process launched, and this is the first tangible outcome of those efforts. Now, whether it actually sticks and whether it produces actual peace in Afghanistan remains to be seen. The will of Afghan leaders on all sides is going to be required if the violence is going to go down, stay down, and if there's going to be some kind of political accommodation. It's possible that won't happen. This is a very fragile process, and the parties have been at war for really decades now, not only the last 18 years. So I expect a bumpy road ahead, but there's an opportunity, and it's an opportunity that should be seized. The agreement itself calls for them to promise not to allow Afghan soil to be used by terrorist groups. It says that they will send a, quote, clear message to their fighters not to cooperate with any terrorist groups. It doesn't specify really anything more specific than that. In addition to calling for the withdrawal of forces, of security forces, it also says that non-diplomatic civilian personnel will be withdrawn as well. And I take that as meaning intelligence. 3 years, and this is a clear-cut foreign policy achievement, even if it is something that's controversial in some circles in Washington. President Trump's clearly brushed aside that controversy and decided that this is something that's good for him, and so that could be a factor in the elections.